Have you ever heard about a country called Kyrgyzstan? If not, I felt just like you, because a few years ago I didn't even know this country existed. Despite being unknown to many travelers, it gained itself a unique reputation. So follow us around on our epic 2-week journey across this beautiful country. But let's start at the beginning. Like many journeys, this one started in a crowded plane with crying children. But still beautiful views and friends falling asleep before we even started. We took our route from Germany via Istanbul to Bishkek, the capital of Kyrgyzstan and home to 1 million people. On our first day, we took the time to explore the city center, where we can find tons of monuments, mostly from the Soviet era. We got some impressions right from the start. First, with us traveling in August, it was really hot. Second, the air quality in the city, not so good. But despite that, everything seemed quite tidy and organized, even by our German standards. But I do have to say that we ran into some minor communication problems because there was almost no one around who spoke English. Anyways, with the mandatory sightseeing being done, the real journey could begin on the very next day. Our vehicle of choice for this trip was an old Soviet military truck, formerly used for radio transmissions and being overhauled and equipped for overland expeditions. To reach the starting point of our journey, we needed to take a 400-kilometer drive, being on the road for almost 10 hours on the very first day. We left Bishkek going east, staying close to the border to Kazakhstan for a while, until we reached the great Issyk-Kul lake. We continued driving along almost its entire southern shore into the direction of Karakol. Our destination was a town called Jeti-Oguz, but I'm jumping ahead of things. First, let me use this opportunity to show you the beautiful scenery, while introducing you to a sound we would hear for many hours in the following days and weeks. Beautiful, isn't it? The place we reached in the meantime was our first camp in a canyon near Jeti-Oguz village. The yurts you can see along the way belong to people who still live partly as nomads, and usually spend the summer here in the mountains, but some camps are used for a little bit of tourism as well. Let me take the time to answer a question for you. Why? Why do we make a journey like this? Well, as some of my viewers might know, I work in ecology. For my Master of Science degree, we needed to do an excursion, and it's possible to make an excursion with an external institute, not necessarily with your university. So we came across an institute from Bishkek which offered expeditions through Kyrgyzstan. And we just thought, what better chance would we get to travel to a country we would normally, possibly, never go. I keep saying we, so I was not alone, because my friend from the beginning accompanied me. You may have briefly seen her in other videos of mine. While originally planned to go in 2020, we had to postpone the journey to 2021 because of the big bad thing, starting with C and ending with Ovid. Although I have to mention that planning wasn't safe at all, and we got the information that we will actually go a week before we started. Normally, these excursions are much bigger, with the institute offering space for 40 to 50 people. On this trip, the number of people who are crazy enough dropped down to 5. No joke. 2 women, 1 man, my friend and I, that's all. With us was a team from the institute, 1 supervisor and scientists, a translator, a driver, time-wise some additional scientists, and a kitchen chef for the whole group. I have to admit that I really much enjoyed traveling in such a small group, because it was way easier to get to know the other participants, and we formed a pretty good team over the time. Additionally, it was also easier to get in touch with the locals, because we weren't just cocooned by a swarm of German students all the time. We are now leaving our first spot, and the rock formation you can see here is called 7 Bulls Rock, which is a famous landmark in the area, and as I've learned, actually the edge of a tectonic plate that pushes itself upward and above another. The place we are now heading to is a plateau, way up in the mountains, and the highest point we will reach in our journey. On the start we found these small hills, which once have been a caravanserai. Kyrgyzstan was part of the Silk Road, so many travelers and merchants might have stopped here back in the days. We then came across some abandoned buildings, and I couldn't resist to explore them a little. As I've been told, this place used to be a border post some time ago, because we are not too far away from China at this point. but by the looks of it, it's been abandoned for a long time now. Before we reached the plateau, we needed to cross 2 mountain passes at 3.4 and 3.8 thousand meters. We already felt the air becoming way thinner. As you can see, these roads are not abandoned and still used by trucks. That is because mining is actually a very important economic branch for the country, which is rich in mineral resources. Gold and other precious metal ores make up more than half of all exports of the country. They even have deposits of uranium. We now have reached the plateau and are roaming towards the glacier, which sits at 4,000 meters. The winds were strong and cold, and the thin air made hiking more than exhausting. But it can't distract you from the beauty of the landscape. Kyrgyzstan is a very mountainous country, with 90% of its territory being higher than 1,500 meters. But we still are not even near its highest summit of 7,439 meters. While we hiked the plateau, we met a shepherd who told us that he saw a bear the day before. The mountains are also home to groundhogs and the very, very rare snow leopards. We saw none of those, but once we are on the way back, you may hear some of the groundhogs scream. After hiking to another small mountain lake and having a severe case of altitude sickness, we finally headed back down through the mountain passes and made camp at the shores of the Issyk-Kul lake. The massive Issyk-Kul lake is something you immediately notice when seeing Kyrgyzstan on a map. Together with glaciers and snowfields, it adds to the country's giant water resources. More than 100 rivers and streams flow into the lake, but at the lake itself, rain is very seldom at this time of year, as we've been told. Still, the local scientists told us that they never witnessed a hailstorm like this in the area. It kept us awake half of the night, almost flooded our tents, and the ground was covered in ice the next morning. Before we make our way to some mining sites of geological interest close to the Issyk-Kul lake, let me tell you a few interesting things that I found out about the lake. It's the second largest mountain lake in the world and also the 7th deepest lake in the world. It never freezes in the winter despite temperatures falling to minus 20 degrees Celsius, probably because warmer water from the depth mixes quickly with surface water. Because of its enormous depth of up to 668 meters, with an average of still 220 meters, it was used for testing submarine technology and torpedoes during the Soviet period. In 2007, archaeologists even claimed to have discovered the remains of a 2,500-year-old advanced civilization at the bottom of the lake. It is even assumed that around 1338 or 1339, the first cases of the plague that led to the pandemic, widely known as the Black Death, have occurred here on the very shores of the Issyk-Kul lake. What you've seen us exploring just now is a landscape with interesting geological formations like natural caves. Some species of birds and animals find shelter in these. We made another small stop at this water reservoir. Those white lines at the side of the valley, by the way, is where normally the water level lies. That's how dry that summer actually was. On our way back, we visited one of the country's cemeteries, which look quite different to the ones in Europe we're used to. Women are actually not allowed on Kyrgyzstan cemeteries, so we all stayed outside of its boundaries. Interesting are the symbols on top of the graves, often showing Islamic or Soviet signs. Now, we are on a long drive towards our last stop of the journey, the Song-Kul lake. Well, drive might be a little optimistic, since our drug has broken down for, I think, the third time at this point. but just at the times before, some random locals showed up and helped us to get spare parts from the next town. So the drive towards the mountain passes could continue. The Song-Kul lake is the second largest lake of Kyrgyzstan after the Issyk-Kul, but with its 29 by 18 kilometers in size, it has only a fraction of its big brother's size. Also, the lake is no more than 30 meters deep. On its shore are quite a number of nomad camps from families who take their sheep, cattle and horses to the great grasslands around the lake. There are also a few camps specifically for tourists, but tourism is still a very big word for what's happening here. We stayed in a camp from a local family who was friends with the scientists and had our own yurt for the 5 of us. It was nice and cozy with a coal-fired oven, but let me tell you, those nights were brutal. The lake lies at an altitude of 3000 meters, which means that even during summer it freezes at night. In addition to that, the walls of the yurt didn't fully connect to the ground, which meant cold air was constantly creeping inside. So we had to play Tetris with our sleeping bags and all snuggle together in the middle of the yurt to keep everyone warm and as far away from the freezing air as possible. Still, the cold also had its plus sides, like being able to build a snowman in the middle of the summer. After we finished our first hike, which was quite a challenge at this altitude, our goal for the next day was a little bit further away. And that meant one thing: horse riding. I don't know if I ever told you that, but I'm not the biggest fan of horses or riding them, and I just think they can't be trusted. But anyways, the things you do for adventure. The problem was just that all the horses they had were quite small. Now I am quite tall, and for some reason they gave me the smallest horse of them all. It's the strongest, they said. They just wanted to make fun of me, that's what I think, because, well, see for yourself. Anyways, somehow we reached the Moldu-Ashu Pass at 3,346 meters, which is one of the 4 passes that lead to the Song-Kul lake. After a short break there, we took the long way back to our camp across the endless plains of the Song-Kul region. Tja, schneller als ich auf jeden Fall. Ne? Du machst das schon. Hier kommt die Überquerung. Egal. Mein Knie tut weh.
Jetzt kannst du das.
Wo ist denn unser Lager? Ich sehe das gar nicht. In the end, we spent almost 10 hours on the back of our horses, which was a unique and beautiful, but also, honestly, quite a painful experience for me. Since that trip, my knee sometimes hurts up to this day, and I'm not even joking.
Jetzt kannst du das.
When we left the Song-Kul lake, we stopped by this hill, which is actually a very, very old burial mound, and later saw some yaks.
Autsch. Ich hoffe echt, dass die Wanderung morgen nicht so lang ist.
Es gibt auch so eine Rentner-Tour-Abschluss.
Once we got closer to Bishkek again, we stopped by the archaeological site at the Burana Tower, which is a large minaret in the so-called Chüy Valley.
Steigt dir einfach mal nach.
Oh shit. Okay, ich muss doch einmal langsam.
Oh nee, ich krieg's nicht mehr.
so einen großen Turm mit so einer kleinen Treppe bauen. This tower right here is actually one of the oldest architectural constructions in Central Asia, dating back to the 11th century. It used to be almost twice as high though, but the top half of it was destroyed by an earthquake in the 15th century. Around the tower there are some grave markers and other remnants of a castle that was part of the ancient city of Balasagun, which was established in the 9th century and placed along the Silk Road. This area is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Das ist von Arabian Graben. Von Grab.
Later that day, after being on the road for almost 2 weeks in total, we finally made it back to Bishkek. On the last day, some of our people went on yet another hike in a more touristy valley near Bishkek, but I stayed behind together with another one of our group because we were really wasted, especially my knee in my case. So I rested a bit and took a last look around the city. On the following night we were taken to the airport because for some reason the flights leave at 6 in the morning or something, and made our way back home. So that's it for our adventure in Kyrgyzstan. Definitely the most unusual country I've been to yet, and definitely the most text I've ever written for a video, that's for sure. So, what can I say for a conclusion? It was very interesting to see a country so far away from what I'm used to, which is located in a part of the world not many people choose for traveling. It was a bit stressful though, because of the excursion characteristics of this journey. Personally, I would not go again. Just because I can get similar nature or even nature I feel more excited about in countries which are much closer to my home in Germany. But for whom would I suggest a journey to Kyrgyzstan? If you are a mountain climber, there are peaks in the 7000s which are often used for Everest training, as I've heard. If you are interested in the culture, like nomad living, staying in yurts and so on. And if you want to see a country in Central Asia, because most of the surrounding countries are much harder to travel or even to get into. If one of these things apply to you, a journey to Kyrgyzstan might be worth it. But that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this voyage, this video, and I hope to see you on the next one.